is saying money is the root of all evil. You ever heard that? Yeah. Do you believe it? Think it's true? No? Yeah, I got good religious scientists in the room. No way. No way. Well, let's back up a little bit and get the quote straight, right? Because most of us have heard it that way. But in actuality, the quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil. That changes it a bit, doesn't it? Shifts the perspective from money to love of money being the root of all evil. It's actually from the Bible. It's from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. And I like that it's the love of money, not money itself. Because we know money is an energetic, right? It's a resource of source. Ernest Holmes is the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living. He's also the author of The Science of Mind, the text that we teach from, the philosophy we teach here. And he relates this idea to prosperity principles that we teach. He wrote a book in 1919, 101 years ago, called Creative Mind. And in it he says this: what are the laws underlying prosperity? The first is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. This me is spirit. We are to trust only in the activity of spirit for what we need. Our life is to be governed by spirit. It will do for us all that we will ever ask, provided we believe. You may wonder, why hasn't it done so? The answer is that it has already done so, but we've not received it. The Spirit may offer, but we must accept the gift before it can be made. And then he goes on to quote Jesus and says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. We must understand that this receiving is a mental process. It is one of mentally taking. In other words, we have to open the door to prosperity, don't we? We have to open the door to prosperity. It's like our practitioner Lori used to say, hello, good, I've been expecting you, right? We've got to open that door to prosperity. And you may think, now wait a minute, I've been treating and praying for prosperity for months or years even. I'm ready to receive. We're going to look at that a little bit today and see if we really are. We are continuing our prosperity series, which we do every October. It's one of the most exciting months for me to talk about the prosperity principles that we teach. And our series title this month is Cosmic Connections. Cosmic Connections. And my talk is Inextricably Connected. And we talk about that a lot in the Science of Mind, how it's all about oneness, how we're all one. Spirit is one. We're within that. And spirit is the source of all that is. So we are inextricably connected. What is prosperity? Let's kind of go back to the beginning. What is prosperity? We've posed this question many times in classes and book studies and things, and always get a wonderful array of answers and what it means to individuals. And for me, is it money? Is it abundance? Yes, and prosperity really means an abundance of all valuable possessions. And when you hear the word possessions, you probably think of things. But let's think of health, wealth, happiness, joy, harmony, relationships, powerful relationships, and familial contacts, and money, right? Money's included in that too. Abundance, prosperity, it's all in there. It's really an idea of a state of balance and harmony. Would you agree? To really anchor into prosperity, we would be in a wonderful state of balance and harmony. No struggle, no worry, no fretting and all of that goes along with some of this idea of I've got to get, as opposed to allowing flow through and receipt. The society has sort of set us up for this idea that we have to have money to be happy. Society sort of set us up for that. We see a lot of fear and loss, lack of ideas, ideas used to convince us that without money we're not enough. They're tapping into our unworthiness, perhaps. And money itself, again, is a thing of representation of source, of spirit. It's just a means of exchanging stuff. It's a system we've set up to exchange things, right? But when we can accept that God is the source, really embody that. God is the source, and money is only one channel of that source. Our paycheck is only one channel of that source. Our retirement income is one channel of that source. And there are many, many sources through which channels through which Spirit can flow. Many through which Spirit can flow. And the example that came to me this morning as I was preparing is, most of us grew up with old-time TV. I got 3 channels growing up: CBS, NBC, and I think we got PBS eventually. That came out in the 60s, I think, maybe. That was it. And there was an antenna on the roof, and that's how we got those channels. Now, one of my friends got ABC, so we got to watch Dark Shadows at her house, right? Because that came on ABC. But that was it. Those were the only channels that the broadcast was coming through for news or sports or movies. That was it. Those 3 little channels. That's all we got. Think of today. We're absolutely inundated. Cable, satellite, internet, YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, right? We're inundated with channels. Multiple channels through which that video can flow. And the same is true of Spirit, only even more so, of course, right? Because that's the field of infinite possibilities. Multiple channels. But we have a tendency to want to limit those, don't we? We have a tendency to want to limit those. Consider the example of someone who says, I want to go on a bucket list vacation, and I'm going to save to do it. I'm going to deprive myself of anything else, any luxuries or extravagances, and I'm going to save every penny I can so I can go on this vacation, right? Because what? They think that that is the only way they can go on that vacation. Whereas maybe they could win it. Maybe they receive in the mail or a phone call, congratulations, you have won an all-expense-paid trip to your favorite destination. Maybe their employer says, we have this conference in this really exotic place, and I know you've been wanting to go there, but would you go and work a little bit, and then you can stay and have your vacation, and we'll pay all the expenses. Or maybe a friend calls and says, I booked this vacation, and my friend was going to go with me, and they can't go with me now. Would you please go with me? I just don't want to go by myself. It's already paid for. All you got to do is show up. Now, those are just 3 silly little ways I thought of. Imagine what Spirit can come up with. And it might be that it comes as the money to pay for the trip to go. That's a possibility too. But just open our awareness to so many other ways that our desires can be fulfilled other than that channel of money. Limiting our good to money is how we limit the limitless. It's one of the ways that we limit the limitless. When we look at this teaching of Jesus, and he's talking about all these prosperity principles, and one of my favorites is when he's telling the rich man, that the rich man says, how can I get into heaven? He says, you need to go sell all your stuff, and then you can get into heaven, and then you can come back and be a disciple. And he goes away hanging his head, right? Because Jesus knew in his heart that his love of money was his idol. That was what he was focused on, not spirit, not spiritual growth, not spiritual wisdom, not following the divine. He was following the money, so he couldn't possibly do that. Now, I don't know about you, but as a kid growing up in the Methodist Church, that story was not interpreted that way to me. Anybody else? Yeah. It was, you can't have anything. You can't be wealthy. You can't have money because you can't get into heaven if you have money. That's how it was interpreted to me as a child growing up. Now, I don't know about you, so I was glad to see this story reinterpreted a little bit. But there's another story of a woman who was calling in a relationship. And she was working with a practitioner, doing all of her prayer work and everything. And the practitioner was saying, we have this thing you have to treat and move your feet. You need to get out so you can meet people. We're doing all the prayer work. We're calling it in, but you need to get out and make yourself available. She's like, I'm not going out. That's crazy. I'm not going to go out and get out in public and stuff. It'll show up. The practitioner's going, okay. Next morning, woman gets up. She's got a flood of water running down her hallway. She's like, oh my gosh. She goes in and she turns the water off. She's got a broken pipe. She has a broken pipe in her house and it's flooding, right? Picks up the phone, calls a plumber. This is what shows up. The rest is history. And they were happily ever after. We make it difficult for Spirit to show up sometimes. Broken pipes may be required. Or we can open up to the infinite flow and make ourselves available to the multiple channels through which Spirit can flow in our lives. We don't have to have a broken pipe, do we? No, we can say yes. Our book of the month, It's Not Your Money, is a fantastic book. This is my copy, which is wonderful, and we're having a great time with it. And the author is Tasha Silver. And as Diane shared, we've done another book of hers, which is called Outrageous Openness, which is another fabulous book. She's a really entertaining author. And she shares 5 steps in her book on how we can make peace with ourselves and our money and live a more peaceful life. And we're going to dive into those practices this week in book study from 6 to 7:30 on Zoom, open to everybody. If you'd like to join us, just get on the website and download or copy the information for the Zoom call. And we're going to be talking about these 5 practices, but I think they are so powerful that I want to share them with everybody as our spiritual practices for this week. I think they are powerful in helping us to transform our prosperity awareness, our prosperity consciousness. And then be reminded of Mindful Monday. That's the email that I send out on Monday mornings. That is a synopsis of what we've talked about, plus details on these practices and things. If you're not on that list already, you can sign up if you're in the room, out in the lobby, or just send me an email and I'll add you to the list for Monday's distribution. But this is a way that you can take the practice with you throughout the week. So here we go. These are Tasha's 5 divine steps from her book, It's Not Your Money. Number 1, she invites us to say the full abundance change me prayer. And she says this prayer is written to open us to the flow of the infinite through us. It's a prayer that can lead us to oneness when we don't yet fully accept that we are. We can use it as the realization step of our 5-step spiritual mind treatment if we want, or it can stand alone. Your choice. You can use it either way. It's designed to help us to release the false identification we may have or inhibitions that we may have and help us to move outside of the limitations of ego. Now, when we think that the source has to that we have to go outside of ourselves to find that source, be it money or whatever it is, that we have to do that work, then we can get our ego involved in that, right? But when we can surrender, which this whole book is really about surrender, when we can surrender to Spirit and allow that flow to flow through us, then we can move that limitation of our ego out of the way. If you find yourself resisting the idea of change me prayer, it goes a little against our idea of science of mind affirmative prayer, but not really when you think of it from the idea of surrender, And if you do feel some resistance, I invite you to take that deeper in your spiritual practice and ask yourself if it is my highest self that is really resisting this idea of change me, or is it my ego that is resisting the idea of not wanting to change? Number 2, start to clean your house. All of them. All of them. Your physical home that you live in, your car, your purse, your wallet, your briefcase, your office, a drawer, your garage, whatever it might be. Start to clean up the clutter. This is a very well-known spiritual practice, right? Of decluttering our lives to make space. Because when we have full hands, full drawers, closets, cupboards, and homes and cars and everything, we don't have room for anything else, do we? We can't receive any more until we make space for it. If we're having a dinner party and our table seats 4 and we've already got 6 crammed around it, we can't serve 12, can we? We have to make space. We have to make room for the new to come forward. If you're calling in money or a relationship, better health, or a new career, we've got to make room. We've got to make space. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at my home office, I get overwhelmed. I don't have time to do this. So we've gotten some good advice both in our book last month and this month, and it is start small. Start small, okay? Maybe start cleaning out your wallet and see how that feels. And then clean out your car. See how that feels. Clean out that drawer. We've all got that drawer, right? Clean out that drawer. Clean out that drawer. Clean off a corner of your desk. Go into your closet and clean out 1 foot of your closet space, right? The author talks about, I think it was the author, talks about taking all of the clothes out of the closet and putting them on the bed and then having to deal with all of that at once. It can be overwhelming. If you've ever done it, it can be overwhelming. So if the idea of cleaning clutter just freaks you out, start small. Do yourself a favor. Start small. And then use your meditation time this week to clean the clutter of your mind, right? Clean the clutter of your mind. Look deeply at the ego objections you may be having. Limiting beliefs. Where are you limiting your good? Where are you limiting that flow of source? And consider what it is that you're truly wanting to create. And again, like the idea of the vacation, the desires for the vacation, but the focus is on the money to go on vacation or the lack of the money to go on vacation. Stay focused on the vacation, not the money. Let the money flow. Number 3, stop complaining about money. Okay? Stop complaining about money. This is one of my favorite prosperity principles. And it's so much in alignment, very important practice within the science of mind even, is to stop complaining. For years, I've taught that we can't pray about, call in one hand and push away in the other, right? We can't do that. We can't say we're calling in a relationship, see someone in a loving relationship and go, oh my gosh, get a room, right? We can't push it away. We can't push it away. Same with money. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they've got 16 cars. What? Please. It's how it showed up in their life. If you were here a couple of weeks ago, you heard my confession of how I had a little limiting of belief around an automobile, right? Yeah. So it's important to catch ourselves saying and thinking these complaints around the areas of our life that we're trying to call in, and to recognize that. We do that, maybe our ego does that, from the standpoint of it's not here, it's lacking, and I'm angry about it, so I'm going to push against it, and push against those who have what I want. And that's a belief in lack, that the pie is only so big. Spirit's unlimited, right? There is no pie. Ceasing to complain about anyone or anything is a foundational principle of prosperity. Think about that as we move through these next 3 or 4 weeks. Okay? Complaining about anything or anyone is foundational. Letting that go is foundational principle of prosperity. Number 4, make a statement of gratitude. And I love this idea too. We've talked for years about keeping a gratitude journal and how important a gratitude practice is to opening our hearts, right? And the practice has traditionally been 5 to 10 things, write it down every night, and what you're grateful for, keep that journal. Well, her practice is to narrow this down to one thing that you're genuinely grateful for per day. Write a statement about it and really embody that gratitude. If you've ever done any of the calling in the one sort of work where you're trying to call in a relationship and they say, oh, make the list of 100 things that you want in your partner, right? And you start making this list of 100 things, and it's not humanly possible for anybody to fulfill that, of course. And I myself couldn't fulfill those 100 things, right? I just looking for somebody else to do it. So what wonderful advice came to me was to narrow that down. And what I realized is in our Science of Mind, we teach that we must first become that which we seek. I couldn't become those 100 things. That was the Santa list, right? I couldn't become those 100 things. But I could be those 3 things. I could be those 3 things. It took a while to narrow, because it would be, oh, well, that's important. But yeah, so is this important? So is this important? But when I continued to boil it down and condense it to the top 3 things, the 3 things that I needed, wanted, desired, I was in my own life, that's when the process began to work. That's when the process began to work. It is much like the quote of Woodrow Wilson when he said, if I am to speak 10 minutes, I need a week to prepare. If I'm to speak an hour, I'm ready right now. It is takes much more thought and preparation to condense our thoughts into the key areas than it does to have that giant laundry list. So reducing from 10 to just 1 important gratitude for the day. Pick one and be grateful. And number 5, I wanted you to practice this with me right now. How about that? We'll get started. Joe, say with me, it's easy for me to receive. Anybody go like this? Whoa. Yeah. When I first started this teaching, I was working on my own prosperity consciousness at that time. It wasn't very good. And what I realized is that I was not a very good receiver. It was a very high hurdle for me to receive. And it's kind of like this other advice about starting small. I started with receiving compliments. Have you ever caught yourself when someone says, beautiful outfit? Oh, this whole thing. Oh, it's nothing. I got it at the used store. It's nothing. It's a hand-me-down. Oh, no. Push it away, don't we? We push it away. And the same is true in people doing nice things for us, opening the door, helping us carry something, complete a project, whatever it might be. But remembering to be grateful in those places and being a good receiver. It's easy for me to receive. So just simply saying thank you. Simply saying thank you and beginning that practice of receiving from that way. Excuse me. It's interesting in this idea of receiving. You may have heard the phrase, it's better to give than to receive. You've heard that? Well, that's another one of those interesting phrases. It was said by the Apostle Paul, who was quoting Jesus in the book of Acts. And turns out Jesus never said that. Nowhere in the Gospels did he say that. And if you think about his actions, they didn't really support that idea, did they? He was a traveling rabbi. He lived, and he didn't have really a house that we know of. He traveled, and he depended on the generosity of people taking him in and housing him and feeding him and washing his feet. Remember all those stories? So he didn't really live that idea that it's better to give than receive. He was a good receiver. He was a real good receiver. He gave, but he was also a really good receiver as well. I personally am not a fan of Paul's, and so I choose to believe Emerson's idea of our actions speak louder than our words. And I think Jesus' actions spoke louder than that. So we can let that one go too. Didn't really say it. So those are the 5 divine steps for practicing the principles this week to transform our perception of prosperity. 5 steps. And now we have the opportunity to take action. We have that opportunity. Tasha suggests that we do this practice for 8 weeks. Now, our book study is ending at the end of October. That'll be 4 weeks. But the book study group has agreed that they're going to continue on through the end of November, through Thanksgiving. So we're going to do this for 8 weeks. It's like 56 days if I'm doing my math right. And transformative practice for these 5 practices in our lives. So I would invite you all to join us. Diane is going to be so kind as to hand you out a cute little cheat sheet for the 5 steps so that you have them to take with you. For those of you watching at home, they are up on the website. You can go to our website and click on the book study link, and in that you will find the information about the book. You'll find information on the PDF for the book study reading guide, also this little PDF for the 5 steps, as well as the prayer. The Change Me prayer is there also for abundance. So that's all there. That's available to you all as well. The prayer is there you can download this afternoon. So the 5 steps. Say a prayer. Clean the clutter. Stop complaining. Practice gratitude. And be open to receive. Be open to receive. Very much in line with our Science of Mind teaching, isn't it? Very much in line with that. And her practices are fresh. We've all talked about that in our book study, that her practices, her presentation, it's fresh. And we like that. And I like that we can practice this together in community. Again, don't forget to sign up for our Mindful Monday to get more details on this to practice throughout the week. And I want to close this out this morning, kind of going back to the beginning when we were talking about that Ernest Holmes quote from his book about prosperity. And he says, have no other gods, only the one God, source of all. No false idols, money, success, job, another person, no false idols. God is the source. Well, to me, that's clearing the clutter. It's clearing all the clutter of any false idols or anything like that. We trust only in the activity of spirit for what we need. Stop complaining. If we're trusting in spirit, what are we complaining about, right? What are we complaining about? Complaining is like throwing back the bouquet and saying, no, thank you. I don't want that. I'm complaining about that. Know that spirit will do for us all that we ever ask, provided we believe. And that's prayer. That's her step of prayer, her first step. And easy to receive, the last step. Ernest tells us we must be good receivers. We must accept the gift before it can be made and understand that receiving is a mental process. This is his work from 1919, her work from 2019. 100 years separates those 2 writings. The truth is truth, isn't it? Truth is truth. Making peace with prosperity, with our money, is a key to living a peaceful life, a satisfying life. I mean, how much time have we spent wrestling this idea of money and finance, achieving, and all of that, when we can open the channels and allow the cable news, not the news, but the cable signals to come through us? We have the power to choose. We can choose to limit, or we can choose infinite possibilities. Today I'm going to invite you to let it go. Surrender it all and allow spirit to work through you in miraculous ways. So it is. So we usually move into a prayer at this time. I'm going to move into a prayer this morning. It will be an affirmative prayer as usual, but the realization step, that center step, is going to be Tasha's Change Me abundance prayer. I want to share that with you so that you can experience it this morning. Also, one of her recommendations is that you record it for yourself so you can not only read it, but you can listen to it. So think about those ideas if this resonates with you. So would you join me for prayer this morning? How good it is that we recognize that there is God and nothing else. It is the one source. It is the one power. It is the presence of life. It is joy. It is prosperity. It is all that there is. It is that which has created everything that exists now, in the past, in the future, forever. the infinite creator, the infinite substance of life itself. It is life itself, and all of it is here now present, in, through, and as me, as an expression of it, individualized and unique in this expression that I am, as I manifest the leading edge of consciousness in the experience of the divine in form in this time-space reality right here, right now. And as I'm doing that, so is each and every person in this room, and within the sound of my voice, we are all individualized expressions of that divine wholeness, that divine love that God is. And knowing this, I speak my word for and about us each. Divine beloved, allow me to give with complete ease and abundance, knowing you are the unlimited source of all. Let me be an easy, open conduit for your prosperity. Let me trust that all of my own needs are always met in amazing ways, and it's safe to give freely as my heart guides. And equally, please let me feel wildly open to receiving. May I know my own value, beauty, and worthiness without question. Let me allow others to the supreme pleasure of giving to me. May I feel worthy to receive in every possible way. Change me into one who can fully love, forgive, and accept myself, so I may carry your light without restriction. Let everything that needs to go, go. Let everything that needs to come, come. I am utterly your own. You are me. I am you. We are one. All is well. And as we just breathe that in this morning, we feel the gratitude in our hearts. Gratitude for life itself expressing, for the beautiful gift of life as us. So grateful for this teaching, for the truth, for the manifestation of this prayer. As I joyfully release it into the action of law, the activity of mind, knowing that it is already done. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is.